Okay, so this video is about setting up the construction model with all the work divisions in the work breakdown structure added. So what I've done is I've created a new construction model. You see at the top here. And if I just go into the Manage tab, Manage Links, you can see that I've inserted the architectural and the structural model in there. So let's just have a look at that. So there it is there, the architectural model. And then inside that, there's the structural model. You can kind of see it as a kind of a lighter element in there. So that's the level of detail I've put into the structural model as per the last video. So I want to concentrate on just that element. So I'm just going to hide in the view the architectural model. And now we can see the structural element that I want to work on. So I'm just going to use this small section as an example as how you can divide it according to parts and get a realistic kind of layout of precast elements as per the A113 specification. So in the background here I've got this A113 specification, and we're looking at doing something similar to this where we can divide the walls in a panelized way and end up with some parts that kind of are equivalent to what we have here. So we can go on and then make a level 4 component drawing from that. So let's kind of get started with that. So we have the wall here. The first thing to do is I'm going to go into the level that it's on, which is residential 1. And again, I'm just going to hide the architectural model. You could of course switch it off in the Manage tab, but let's just leave it hidden at the moment. And we have now set up the structural walls, which show the openings as laid out by the door openings and the window openings. Now we want to divide it, but we want to divide it automatically. So I'm going to create parts from the linked file here. So you can do this by tabbing through until you select the individual elements and then press Create Parts. Okay. And you actually have to do this individually if you're taking it from a linked file, because you can't actually select the whole thing. So I'm just going to go around very quickly and do that. So now we have parts in the view here. So now we have selectable elements here. So we can come in here and be very specific as to how these elements overlap. So they look like they're reasonable enough, but we can make a decision by selecting the part, selecting the shape handles, and actually just rearranging the parts in such a way, whoops, that's the wrong one, rearranging the parts in such a way that they hook up in the format that we want them to be, until we have a clean plan of the structural walls there. So then what we can do is we need to divide it. Now they're probably divided perfectly as is in most cases. Maybe this one's a little bit too long, but well, actually they're all a little bit too long. So let's assume that this dimension here, let's just put a dimension on this here. Where are we? Dimensions here. So my grid dimension is 3750. For the sake of simplicity, we're going to assume a dimension for the panel of 3750, because we can actually use the grid lines as they stand to cut the parts into, or to subdivide them into smaller parts. So let's just select the parts, and once we've selected them, we can select Divide Parts, and we can either draw a division on them, which we can do in individual parts, or we can use any intersecting references to divide the parts. So I press this button here. We have levels, so we can divide the parts by levels if we have to. We already got them divided by levels because the host wall is divided by levels already. We We can also use grids, which we have, but we can also use reference planes. So if you want to use extra references rather than the grids, you can also use reference planes as long as you give them a name to divide the parts. But I'm just going to use grids for the moment. At the moment we've got all the grids in there. So what we have here is I don't necessarily want to divide the parts down the line here because that would divide the wall into two equal half-size walls. But I want to use the B at least and the C. I think we're going to have to be a little bit more specific about this. So I'm going to cancel that and just select the parallel walls first, because then we can use these elements to divide them. So divide parts, intersecting references, choose the grids, and I'm just going to choose A, B, C, and I'm also going to use D as well, just so we get a division here. So that means we have more control over the connection there. If I apply that and press OK and then accept it, that's okay. It's just telling us that it doesn't intersect those parts, so that's okay. We can see that now when we run the mouse over the elements, they are divided into smaller parts. Now these parts are the equivalent to your concrete panels. So that's the first part of it. Now what we can further do, if I just select these again, is, and you can do this at the same time, you don't necessarily have to stop and like I just did there, but we can actually edit the division between them. So what I want to do here is first of all change the gap, because we're dealing with prefabricated construction, and at this type of panel we usually have an 8mm assembly tolerance at each end, which leads to a 16mm tolerance between two panels. So I'm just going to change that to 16mm. If I apply that, straight away you can see that it started to draw a tolerance in between the grid lines there. But on top of that, we can also change the profile. So we want to use it something again like this profile here. So you can see we've got that 16mm division here, but we also need to make this this shape for the concrete jointing to be used in, and the steel reinforcement, of course. So I'm going to use a profile that's already loaded into Revit, which is going to first of all come in here. I'm just going to use notch, and we're going to mirror it so that it's the same on either side. You can see it's given us a kind of a notch there. If we change it from mirror to complementary, it does it in the same direction. And then if we change it to rotated, it doesn't really do that much because it's not that different in both ways. So let's leave that for the moment and accept that. So now we have these very detailed joints between all these elements here. You can see that on this one over here, we're going to have to go back and re-edit how this works, because we actually don't need that division in there, so we can remove it later. We need to do something else in that position. But over here, we're getting ready for the next layer to go into the wall. Let's just go into 3D here and have a look at that. You can't see it here because it's set to parts visibility is set to show original, but let's set it to show parts, and you can see that we actually have the panels of the wall. Okay, but we don't have the exact profile that we want. So I'm going to go in there and make that profile. So I'm just going to go and open the family where the profile exists. I'm just going to come into Profiles, then we go into Division Profiles, and the one we used is the Notch profile. Just going to open that up. And you can see it's a very simple family. There's no real parameters or anything in the family here. We have notch width, notch depth, and that's kind of locked. Okay. So what we can do in here, I'm going to save as family. I'm going to put it on the desktop just for the moment, and I'm going to call it precast joint year 1. And we've got 50 mils and we've got 50 mils here. So let's just say that that's correct, and I'm just going to make the angle at 45 degrees on both sides. I'm just going to draw it very quickly, and then trim it together. So that's kind of our angle. So let's just do a quick dimension on that. From there to there is 150. That's actually bigger than our wall. So we'll just move this in. Let's make this angle 25, 25, trim it together, load into project, go back to the residential level there, and I'm going to select one of them and edit the division. Try this, apply. And you can see we've got some kind of acceptable sketch in there. So then we can accept that. And now I'm using kind of narrow walls here, so it's possible you have a different kind of junction in there. But you can see how easy it is to both deal with the tolerance and also the area for the reinforcement, which you can put in at a later date.